I'll begin. So today we just be exploring more in the world of reactive programming with RxJS and then signals. These are two reactive approaches that Angular has, and then they all attempt their reactiveness in a different way. So we'll be exploring more. We build the same application with RxJS, and then we build the same thing with signals. All right, so just say a bit about myself. My name is Paul Boama. I'm a software engineer at Stanbic Bank Ghana, and then I'm also the current Flutter community lead in Ghana. And then Live Team 3 is my Twitter handle. In case of anything, you can just DM me or ask any questions after, and then I'll be willing to answer you. So here we just talk more about change detection. I hope everybody knows change detection, but I'll take us through change detection again. We talk about Zone.js, then we talk about signals, then RxJS itself, and then we go into a demo section where we build the same application with RxJS and then signals. And then we see how easy each is, and then you can choose for yourself which one that you think is best um, um, for your daily work. All right, so a bit about change detection. So we all know front-end frameworks nowadays are more component driven. And then the basis of front-end development is more like showing the data to let's say a client, and then the data that you show to the client sometimes can change. So the framework will also have to be in position to also refresh the data that has changed so that the end user can see it on their screen. That is like on the basic level what every front end framework is doing, just that everybody has an approach in which they take it, right? So um, actually, change detection itself is the process in which a framework detects change in the application and then make sure that the change in the application is in sync with the UI. So that's all that change detection is about. So basically, let's say you have an Angular component, and then so we have your template here. There's a function here called change name, and then it's bind to a class called change name to, and there's a P button here which shows the name, right? So what you're going to do is once you click on the button, the name here is going to change from John to Jane, right? So what happens in Angular is once you click the button, Angular already has a wrapper around the whole component. So let's say some components, I just name my component. So once you click on it, component or name runs, the value is changed from from John to Jane, right? Once that function is done synchronously, Angular also runs a change detection synchronous. So this is not actually from the Angular code itself. This is just an imagination of how Angular works. So once this function runs and is done, then the change detection also is also run by Angular. Then the end user is going to see that the name on the screen has changed from John to Jane. But what happens if um, the code I show you here runs synchronously, right? What about an async case? So in a case where you wait for, let's say, 1,000 milliseconds before you change the value from John to Jane, then that means it's an async code, and then before the value is being changed from John to Jane, the change detection has already run. So the UI is not going to update for the end user to see, right? So that's when Zone.js comes to the rescue. So what Zone.js does is it allows Angular to kind of listen to certain events in the browser and run code or anything that they want to do after that event has already ended. So there are a couple of events that happens in the browser like click, drag, push, and then like a whole lot of things, right? So once any of those things are done running, it can notify Angular that, okay, this particular action has happened in the browser and is done. So now once it happens, Angular can either choose to run a code before or after that. So here is the action that is being done in the UI, which is delegate.invoke task. That one too we are assuming. So once this one is done, then Angular can choose either they want to maybe console before set timeout or after set timeout, right? These are codes that the Angular team can choose either they want to um, add or not. So in the case of here, so what is going to happen is Angular is just going to listen to this event here. Once name change is completed, Angular is going to listen to this timeout. Once the timeout is also completed, that is when the change detection is always going to run. So there are instances where you get an errors like I don't know if I can remember the exact error. It says or something change after change detection has run, right? Most of the time it happens when you kind of do these kind of things where you run code in timers and things. But that error is only shown in the console when Zone.js also fails to notify the UI that there has been a change and then it has to update. So actually this is the process that Angular goes through when there is a change in any value that then it has to go kind of rebuild your UI for the end user to see. So first of all, let's say there is a click inside the component. So the orange one is a component that the change name function is being called, right? So what happens is detect changes is going to run, which will go through the whole component tree and check for the component which has changed. So first of all, it comes to this one, has it changed? No. It goes to this one, has it changed? No. Then it comes down here again. So when it checks here and it sees that this component has changed, then it just marks it as checked, right? Then the new check new changes also run, which will also run and check for component that has not changed, right? So it runs and then it sees that okay, this particular change, this particular component has been marked as this particular component has been marked for as dirty, right? That's the term that we use for it. Then that means something inside the component has changed, and then the UI has to, that particular component have to be rebuilt. So what happens is that component tree, from that component downwards, all of them is being detached and then reattached again to the UI so that the new value that is being set is going to be seen on the screen. So so that is how currently Zone.js works. And then Angular signal. So to do this, the Angular team has been looking for better ways of running this, because if you come here, you see that it's just wasting time in case your application is huge. All these components there has to be a check in all the individual components, right? Before it knows that this particular component has changed. And then the change detection runs for that component. There's also an instance where you can change detection strategy to on push, where once you change it to on push, the strategy that it follows is going to be in a different pattern where it checks that particular component and its particular component and its tree for the change, right? But still not that effective. So Angular signal, signal in general was introduced, which is going to help in the which is supposed to help in targeting the particular component that the change happened in, so that when the change detection is run, it can easily identify that okay, the change happened in components A or B. So that is where we are going to replace, or that's where we are going to rebuild the UI from. So that has been the whole purpose of Signal, just so that it can fine tune how the change detection process works. Right. So there's also RxJS, which also attempted to do the same thing. RxJS also takes the reactive programming to a next level, but in RxJS, there are a lot of things that you might have to deal with, right? So you have to deal with unsubscribing to data. Once you subscribe to it, you also have to deal with a bunch of RxJS operators that you have to learn, right? So that one, React RxJS also attempts the same thing, but just that to be able to achieve it, there's a bunch of things that you have to do. So we are going to actually build an application with the same application with RxJS and then signals, and then we will judge for ourselves which one is easier to use. Right. So I think that will be all for the slides. Any questions before we dive into the demo section? Whilst I switch my screen here.
We can continue.
All right. So, okay. Can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So I already have an application generated. This is just a standard Angular application which uses the standalone component. So I'll just take you through it. For CSS, we'll just be using TypeScript. Tailwind here. Everything has been configured already. Yeah, there's a Tailwind setup and that's already been configured. We also have Angular material already set inside the project already. And then here I have a component here which is called um, movie title. It's actually a movie application that we are going to build. And then a bunch of movies are going to be displayed to you, and you're supposed to choose which one of them is it's just movies and TV series. So you have to choose which one of them is a movie and then which one of them is a TV series. So a question is going to be asked. The question is just going to be randomly generated, and then you answer the question. So in the question, there are just two of them. Which of them is a TV series, and then which of them is a movie series, a movie show. All right. So there's also my home component. My home component currently have nothing inside of it. So my route here too is also configured to show the home component. That's where we basically be working from. And I also have my API service here. This API service is going to be used to fetch the movies, and I already have um, an endpoint here, two of them, right? Two of them to fetch the movies that we need. So this one is just consuming the movie database, and here is my authorization key here that I am passing to the headers. I also have my interfaces here where I have set up my interface for the response from the API. So right now, this is the application. I just have two buttons here, home and then now playing. Right. So let's just start with it. So first of all, we are going to write this code with we're going to create this game with RxJS, and then once we are done, we move from RxJS into signals. So so right now I have my components here. We're already in my components. So here I will inject the movie service and then try the API out and see if the data is coming through. So I'll do API service, and I'll use the inject function to check the API service inside. So in the constructor, I'll fetch the data from the API service by calling this API service dot get all movies. I'll subscribe. So anytime that you're using RxJS and then you call anytime that you're using the HTTP service, since it implements RxJS underneath it, you have to subscribe to the response that you get from it. So I'll console log the data here. So I'll switch and see the console. All right, so I can see that there's response from the API service here. Yeah, so now let's build our UI for it. So let me just create a div here. Um, Let me set it to a grid with 2 columns. So I have a div with 2 columns here, and I'm going to display the movies inside this. So I'll do the new art4 templating so that I can loop over the response from the API and then display it. So let me just go here, and instead of calling get all movies, I'm going to get all the get the now playing movies here instead. So okay. So here I can subscribe it. Um, so let's create a variable called all movies, which is going to house all the movies that we get from the API here. So in our type definition here, you can see that the endpoint retains this movie DB response, and then it has page results, and then total pages, and then total results. But we are only interested in the results here, right? So this is just going to be a type of results here, which is going to be an array. And initially we set it to an empty array. So once the data comes in, we can do this dot all movies. First of all, we can go here and then return this one as an observable. Movie DB response. In case there is any question, please just stop me on the way and then ask before things gets a little bit complicated. So here you can just set it to results here. First of all, let's just display the data inside right here with the JSON pipe. Yeah, so now we are getting all our data here. So we are going to loop over these movies and then display them in the screen here. So we are going to do for, let's say, item all movies. We are going to track them by the ID of the movie. So create a div here. Set the width to, let's say, 200 pixels. Sorry. Let's set the image. Let's set the image to, I think it's the, yeah, I think it's the backdrop here. Let's set the title to, let's add the original title. Yeah, let's try this out. Okay, so here we can see that the movies, the images are not loading. Actually, if you go to the movie database, if you go to their documentation, they tell you how you consume their images. So since that is not in scope, I just pasted this snippet here. So I'll just copy that and come and add it here. You just have to set the base URL for the images before you can consume them. So I'll directly hard code that one here. Okay. Yeah, and let's try that again. Okay. Okay, so it looks like the movies are loading now. Okay, looks like the images are loading now. So let's just add a bit of styling to the movie tiles here. So let's display them as flex. Add a border to the images, the movies, so that we get that. Yeah. Okay, so let's add a bit of padding to the side. So let me wrap them in a div. And let me add a padding of, say, 3. Yeah, so I think that should be, let me add a bit of padding here too. Yeah, so that should be all for displaying the movies. So right now we have to be able to display a question, and then the end user is going to answer based on the question that is being displayed, right? So the movie title component, you are going to repurpose that one. I want to repurpose that one to show the question, the particular question that we want to ask. So let me just take the app that I have here out. I think that one should be in the app component here. So I remove that one. And then for Angular single components, you have to import the individual components that you want to use. So I'll import the movie title component here. Then I'll add that on top. So let's go to the movie title component. Let's see if the movie title component is showing here. Yeah, so we have our movie title here. So let's add a bit of styling to it. Let's make it take the full width. Let's add a height of, let's say, 50 pixels. Add a paragraph which is going to contain the question. Um, let's center that one too. And then let's make the font size. Sorry, let's the sorry. Let's make the text large here. I think it's too small, so let's make it to Excel. Okay. So let's add a pattern. 5 on the y-axis here. All right, all right, so we have our question here. So in case you don't understand how I am styling the components, I'm using Tailwind here. So in case you go to, in case you go to Tailwind css.com, then you go to the documentation, there's there's an installation guide here for frameworks where you can select Angular from the list, and it will direct you as to how to set up Tailwind for it, right? So I'm using Tailwind currently inside this application. So right now we have our question here, and then we have just 2 questions that we are going to be asking. So I think from here we are done with the UI. We're just going into RxJS right now. So we have 2 questions that we are going to ask. That is, which of them is a movie and which of them is a TV show, right? So after choosing, the question is going to change. So let's see how we can implement such a feature with RxJS. Okay, let me increase my font a bit. So first of all, let's define our question. So we will create another service here. So let's do that with a terminal. So ng generate service in the service folder. Let's name it quiz. Yeah, so our quiz service is here, and this quiz service is going to handle the whole state of the application. So first of all, let's define our questions, right? So let's not define them inside the class, let's define them outside. So questions. Let's define our questions here. So the question is just going to be an array with ID, with an object which has an ID of 1, and then the question itself, which is going to be, sorry. So let's say choose a movie from the list. Yeah, and then let's say we have a type here. So we are going to make use of a type that I've already defined here. which is this media type here. So we're going to set that one to that enum. So this media type dot movie. So that's going to be the question, right? And then we have another one, which is choose a TV series. Sorry, yeah, from the list. This is also going to be a TV here. So ideally, in a real world scenario, all these questions are going to be from some database where you fetch them and then you continue on with it, right? But here, since we are just focusing on RX and signals, we are just going to use these two questions here. All right, so right now, you are going to create um I'm going to create a state for that question, right? So let's define an observable for it. So an observable is, sorry, let's define a behavior subject for it. So a behavior subject just, is more like a class which listens to data and then emits the data when you need it, right? And you can also update the data that is inside the behavior subject. So um, let's create a variable called um, question. Let's say current question. Let's create since behavior subject is a class, you have to precede it with the new with the new keyword here. Right. So we have to pass the value that this behavior subject should contain. So let's just first set it to question. Let's set the first value in the question here as its initial value. So we are going to consume this behavior subject inside our movie title components, right? So ideally, when you are doing state management, the states should only be maintained inside that particular class that you create for it, right? So in case you have a service, changing and then getting of that state should be maintained inside the particular service. It's just like a best practice so that not every part of your component will be changing the value of that state, right? So here currently just acting as a state for us. So we create get question function, which is going to get the current value of the question. So we can even set this one to private here so that components outside cannot get this value. And then this is just going to be a public method which any component can get the value from. Any component that is injecting the service can get the value. So here we return um, this dot current question dot as observable. So here we are just preparing ourselves to listen to any change in the data that is coming from that happens to this behavior subject. So we can go to our um, movie title class here. Let's create a let's create a reference to that. Let's create a reference to this question state here. So current question. So we can do current question. Current question is equal to just an empty string here, and then we inject the query service inside it. So um, query service, and then in the constructor, and do this dot question is equal to query service dot get question here. Now we only sorry. Now we are only interested in it as a string, so we can sorry, I made a mistake here. So here we subscribe to it for any change, and then we update the current question here when there is a change. So this dot current question now going to be equal to value here dot question. Value is being represented with v here, right? So here I can just interpolate question, current question here. So let's check the UI and see if it's there. Okay, all right. So, oh, sorry, I made a mistake in the question. What did I do? Okay, so I made a mistake in the question I typed. I think it's supposed to be choose. Yeah. So yeah, so now we have the question here. So once there's a question here, you're supposed to select which of them is the right one, right? So let's set in our home component, let's set up a click function for each of the movie tiles, right? So let's say it's called on select. So we'll pass the movies, the ID of the movie here, the string. Then we bind this function to the movie tile, right? So here we just pass the ID. Okay, so it's actually a number. So let's just change our type here to number so that the compiler doesn't complain. So let's log the value. Log the value once it's being clicked in the console. Right. Yeah, so we can see from the console here that once we click on it, we are getting the IDs of the movies. Yeah, so we are one step close to completing our project here. So now, so far, this the the question component here, which is the movie title component here, knows about the question itself, the question service, but the component that is displaying the list of the movies doesn't know about it yet. So we are going to inject the question. We are going to inject the question service inside the home component where the movies are being displayed. So let's say sorry, quiz components and quiz service. Let's inject the quiz service here. Now, once the button is being clicked, you want to check to see the kind of question that is in here and see if the answer that was selected is true. Right. So what we are going to do is on select, we have the ID here already. So we can go through this movie list here to find the movie with that particular ID, then check to see if the type of movie is either a TV or a movie series. So in the type here that has been defined, there's a field in the results section which says type. Um, yeah, so media type here. So media type is either a movie or a TV. So let's go through it. So once it's clicked, so let's say let's click the movie. Okay, let's name it Tau so that we don't confuse ourselves. Go to now we look through the movies here, and then filter. Okay, let's do a find instead. So let's say X, where X dot ID is equal to the ID that has been passed. So now we have the movie item here or undefined. So we can do if. So now we are checking if this is not undefined, but is actually result, then we can just console log you are right inside the console. All right, so let's try it out. Yeah, so you are right. You are right. I think it's showing inside. Yeah, because currently all the movies here are already inside the list here. So that's how it's supposed to be. So right now that we are getting this, let's get the question itself and let's compare to see if it's a movie or not. So we have the clicked item here, and then we have the current question too. So we can do if the clicked item dot media type is equal to. Now we need to get the question here too, so that we can check to see if the values are the same, the media type values are the same. So we have to come and do another subscribing here. Sorry, supposed to be the query service. That question, and you subscribe to it. Sorry. So we can create question here. Mm, It's not by default, right? So we can do this dot. Right, but the compiler is going to complain. So let's define a type for the question. So we can come to the query section. Let's come to our interfaces here and let's get sample here. And then let's define an interface for it. Okay. So it's supposed to be an interface, right? Yeah. So here, the query service, you can just do that. Just that this is supposed to be a type of function here. I in front of it is just to tell it that it's an interface. It's just a naming convention. Everybody have ways of naming their interfaces. Um, some prefer adding interface to the name, but I think I prefer it being a capital I in front of it, right? Just to show that's an interface. But it's not anything. You just can just go ahead with anything that you are okay with. So here we can just tell it that it's supposed to be like we are expecting a question or now, right? So we define the type for it here. So we import question here. Yeah. So now you see the compiler is no more complaining. So here we can just do the question dot type. So once the media type of the item that was clicked is equal to the questions type, then console log you are right. So let's try it out again. Say select a movie. Also think movie, all these ones that we are clicking on are movies. Let me see if there is, okay, it looks like we are getting only movies here. Well, that is fine. So let's, yeah, so that is fine. So I have Angular material installed. So let me just use the snack bar instead. So I'll import the snack bar module here. Oh, sorry, it's supposed to be mat snack bar module. Let me just import it directly. So here to we inject the snack bar module here so that we can show a snack bar if the question is right. So once the question is right, we do dot snack bar dot n. Then we pass our message here. Don't want any action. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just pass empty for that one. And then the config, we can set a time for it. So duration, just set it to 5,000 milliseconds. Okay, sorry, mean duration. Yeah, so let's try that out. Clicked. Okay. Okay, so we are getting your rights, but it's way down here. Right. Right. So let's set the direction to up so that we can see it on top. I'm sorry, position. Um, okay, I think it's supposed to be this one. I'm not sure why it's still showing down there. Let me see. It's still showing that, but that's not even part of the scope of the video. of this section. So let's just stick with console login. It's inside. Um, if anyone knows why it's still showing down there, you can just let me know so that I can fix it real quick. Yeah, so we have it done here. So in our sidebar, we are going to um, keep track of all the individual movies that we've clicked in the right side here. I'm going to keep track of all the individual movies that we've clicked here, and then we are going to remove them from the list that are here, right? So we are going to create another behavior subject to handle that one too. So let me just duplicate this one here. So let's name it, let's say, let's say question answers. And that one is going to be an empty array. So let's define a type for the chosen answers. So let me fix this thing quick. Okay, so let's define a type for that one too. So it will have the ID of the item that was clicked, which is number. And then it will also have a Boolean value, which is either the answer was correct or wrong. So let's say it's correct. Also going to be a Boolean value. Let's move this type here into our interfaces here. Now we can tell the compiler that here we are only going to expect I'm sorry, what is the name of the type again? Okay, chosen answer. We are going to expect a row of chosen answers here, right? But initially, since we've not entered any, it's just going to be an empty value here. So inside our home, we are going to make use of the other tab here. So we'll copy and paste here. We'll copy and paste this code here to, sorry. So we can point this one to all answers. So you can have a variable here called all answers and set them to an empty string and define the type for it. It's going to be chosen answer, which is an array of chosen answers. So here, let's just add the name of the component to the type here. Yeah, and let's remove this original title. And then the backdrop too, let's drop that one. Yeah, so we have this here. So this is working now. And once the user selects it, we have to be able to populate the list here that is on the side too. And then we have supposed to remove the list from this one, from the current one that have been displayed here. So on click, let's go to that function again. Here. Now we have to add another value to the behavior subject that is here already. So let's create a function, say add answer. So the type is going to be chosen answer. And then once we get it, we can do this dot chosen answers. And then we call next on it, right? But once we call next, it will expect us to pass a new values to it, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to get the current value of the chosen answers by calling so by creating a variable to hold it, which is, let's say, underscore current values. This is the chosen answers dot value here. So once you have the current value, you can spread the current value here. And then we add the new value that we have to it. Yeah, so we are done for this one. So let's consume that inside our onSelect method here. So once we realize that the person is right, we can call the query service, add an answer to it, and then we pass the ID, which is the ID that was passed through the method, and then we pass is correct. So is correct we can just copy this function here. Sorry, this statement here, and then we put the same here, which is going to check if the value is equal to, if they are equal, then that means it's correct. It just passes the value is correct to the value that it gets from computing if the media type is equal to the question type, right? So we also have title here, sorry, title where we can just use the data that we get from finding the ID from the movies. So clicked here. So let's do title. Okay, so it can be undefined, but since okay, it can be undefined, but let's just sorry, let's just put scenario operation here and then set it to an empty string so that the compiler doesn't complain about it. So now we are done with this. So let's test it out. So in case this movie, you see we get right, but it's not showing here. So let's go back to find out why it's not showing here. So here we realize that we have an empty value, empty answers here, but we are not listening to it. So we have to come and set up another listener. Yes, but before we can do that, we have to go and create another getter from here, which is going to get the current value and then return it as an observable. So we have add answer. So we create another one for get answer. So let's create one for get answers. It's going to return this dot, sorry, is just choosing answers as observable here. So inside our home component, we can call this dot get answers and then subscribe to it. So this dot, so this dot all answers here, we assign it to the value that we get from it. So let's save and then try it again.
People,
So now we
follow
can,
this to distract you. Follow this
pardon,
to distract you. Just wanted to give you a heads up that we have about 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah, 1 5.
All right, sure. So here, once we click on it, we see the marvels appeared here. Once we click on this one, so it also appears there, right? And then it keeps on. So just so that they are all in scope, let's just set a height to just one to say 200 pixels so that, yeah. So, okay, so we have them here, right? So let's just go into signals. So now we have it here. Once you select, the movies are now showing on the right side here. But just imagine all the things that we had to go through to get that done. We have listeners, listeners, forgetting that in each of them, we have to also add an undestroy, an ng undestroy, which we are supposed to destroy each of the values that we are listening to after that, right? There are new ways and then modern ways of also destroying the values that you are listening to, but in all, you still have to kind of destroy them, right? But this looks too cumbersome to do every time. So Signals introduces a newer and then an easier approach. So instead of always subscribing to the values, there's no need for you to subscribe when you're using signals. So let's transform everything that we've done here into using signals real quick. So we start from our API service. So here, instead of returning an observable, we can return to signal. Okay, we can return to signal here. Let me just import it. Some call. So yeah. So you can return to signal, and then we pass our observable to it, which is going to change this observable that we are getting here and turn it into a signal and then return it. So once we come here, you see the compiler is complaining because we don't need all these things anymore. All that we need, so all movies here, all we have to do is to go to the all movies side and then just do this dot API service all movies like this, right? So now it's not going to return a result again, just going to return a signal with a subtype of results. Um, Sorry, let me comment this one out. It keeps confusing. So let's get referring to the get now playing instead. So let's do that one now playing. Now you see that one retains a signal with an object. So let's go and define the type for it here. Right. So the type is going to be movie. Movie DB response. let's define this one too as an observable. Yeah. So here we have our all movies here. So we have our all movies here. But what we can even do better is since the UI here is only expecting an array of all movies, but here we are returning um in our API service here, we are returning a movie DB response. What we can do is another property that RxJS offers, which is called computed, right? So what computed does is it create a new signal out of another signal. So let's say let's prefix this with an underscore here, and let's say all movies is equal to a computed signal. So we have a computer signal here, takes a function, and then returns a value. So now we can return underscore all movies. Anytime that you want to use a signal value, you have to call it as a function since they are all signals are getters. So we can return the results that we are expecting here so that the UI doesn't complain about it anymore, right? So it can return either a result or undefined. So let's add this here so that it always return an array. So in the UI, we can just go and then do all movies here. Then we call it as a function instead of just using it as a variable. Sorry. Yeah. So that's it. We are done. So here where we are doing a find, we can just call it as a function here again. And we don't need to subscribe to any value. So we can just, okay, we've already removed that one. Yeah, so let's save it real quick and see how it works. Yeah, so you can see that still our application works the same, but we've written less code here, right? So let's do the same for the quiz service too. So instead of listening, we're going to transform all of them into signals. So in our quiz service here, instead of a new behavior subject, we're just going to create a signal. Signal is also a function, and then you don't have to add the new keyword to it. So let's do another signal here. So here we can just return the signal as a value here. Once you call it, it's going to return the value of the signal, which is the value inside here, but we want to return the signal itself again. So that's why we are not calling it as a function here. So get answers to, you are going to do the same thing. Instead of doing this, once we want to update it, we don't have to get the current value and then set it again, right? So Signals has a better way of doing it, which is we can do this dot choosing answers dot update. So update takes a callback, and the callback has a value, right? That is the current value here. So all you have to do is to return. We are expecting an array, right? So we just return the current value here. Then we add the new data that we have to it. Right? So there's no need for you to get the current one and then set the value of the behavior subject again. So here, get answers to, we can just return the signal again. So we can go into our questions, and then instead of subscribing to this, there's no need for us to do that. We can just do the current question here is equal to h.queryService dot get question, and then we can prefix it here. Since we don't want to touch the UI, then we create another variable which is going to hold a computed signal. So that one is just going to be computed, which takes a function. Then we return, sorry, I'm trying to finish it fast as I can. So that's chain. So here you can call it as a function. Since we want the value, then we return the question, the string that we are expecting to display inside the template. So now you can see that the compiler is no more complaining, but it's just telling you that this is a function and then we're using it as a value. So to get the actual value, we just call it as a function here. And you're going to get the current value of the signal. So let's go to home and do the same here too. You don't have to subscribe to these things. So question here, we can just set it directly to this dot service. It's question. So we can take the type out, so the type will be inferred on it. Yeah. So now anywhere that we are using question here, we can just call it as a function instead of just using it as a value. Let's do this. Yeah, so we don't have to subscribe to it here anymore. So here we have the type. Let me see why. Okay, so we have to call this here. Okay, all right. So we have to call it here to get the current question and set the type on it here. So now let's check and see if something is broken. Okay, so we have it, but our list here is not showing. Let's find out why. So in the add service, let me see what is happening. Okay, so I think I know why. Let's just, instead of returning the question directly, let's return the signal. Let's return a computed question here, like we did for the other ones. So we add a callback to it. And then here, we can compute a new value for it. So we're going to return question here again, the signal here. Then can call this dot question dot, sorry. Oh, Okay. Okay. Let me turn this. Sorry, I think I made a mistake here. Running into an error. Client person is not a function. Okay. Um, okay. So I think the problem is coming from the answers here. So let me fix this quick. Yeah, yeah. I'm not listening to the answer, sorry. Oh, so we can return this dot um service dot get answer here, and we can take the type out. I'm sorry, get answers. We're just going to return a signal, and then here we can call it as a function. Let me see. So now once we click on it, we should see that the data is being appeared on the, and then the URI to, sorry, then URI to is also showing down here. Yeah, so just imagine how, now we don't have to worry about destroying anything that we listen to. It has ways of destroying it itself. Everything is being handled inside. There's no need for you to destroy the value again. Some can also argue that you can use the async pipe to, in case you are using observable. But yeah, that one too is more like introducing another thing inside it. But see how the code has transformed from a long subscription, and then um, see how simple this query service has become, right? So now everything here is just a signal. We return the signal in case we want to update it. There's an update function here that we can call, and then it has the current value. Then the new value that you are passing to the to your function, you can just compute it, and then it's going to update your signal for you, right? In case you have a signal too, and then you want to make change to the data that want to, you can just use computed, right? So here, once we are returning, since we are returning this here, we can just do anything to the response that we want to. Let's say we have a list of TV series from another API that we want to merge together to form one. We can just do it here in the computed here. All right. I think my time should be up now, and then I'm going to end it for here. Any questions? Mhm.
Thank you very much, Paul. I understand the fact that sometimes you might get errors in between, but that's the whole beauty about having. It's great also, I think, for those who are attending this session, and also to look at the thought process that you're having when you're resolving this. And I hope that those who are watching, at least you're picking up a few tips here and there on how to describe your code and all that. I think just a question which I've gotten this quite a number of times is how is it possible to have observables and signals to work together, or is it one replacing the other?
All right. So I think from the demo, so in the API service here, right? So in this get now playing here, you see the HTTP client already retains an observable, right? So I have this as return type observable here. I'm just casting this type on it, but when you check here, you can see that it returns an observable, right? So to convert the observable into a signal, all you have to do is to call to signal, and then you pass the observable inside it. So to signal is being imported from RxJS interrupt here from Angular core, right? So once you call that function, you pass the observable inside it. From here, signal takes over. Everything that you have is signal. So ideally, when you have an API request like this, all you have to do is to subscribe to the value, right? But when you come to home, where I am using the get now playing, see, I'm no more subscribing to it. I'm just calling it as a function here and then assigning it to all movies, right? Then I'm computing the value down here and then retaining only the results part of it, because I'm only interested, the UI here that I did only is expecting an array of results, right? So I can just use this here to transform the value, but it's not necessary. I can just take this part out. I can go to here, and then once I call it, I call the underscore all movies as a function here. I can just call dot results on it, right? And then I'll be able to use it. So here too, I just have to call underscore here, then call results on it here, right? And then everything is just supposed to work fine. There's no need for you to subscribe again, right? So now you see the application is just running. So with to signal, observables and then signals can just work together.
Okay, thank you. I think when the Angular team was introducing signals for the first time, people were like, "Oh, it's going to replace RxJS and all that." But then, in one way or the other, they just complement each other in the sense that we, when it comes to code readability, it's much more readable. When it comes to fine-grained reactivity, it's even much more easier with signals, as opposed to using a sync pipe, subscribing and subscribing, and all that. So thank you for that insight.
Yeah,
Anyone
exactly.
who maybe has another, yeah. Anyone else maybe has a question?
Yeah. All right, Eric.
Any? Yeah.
Hi guys. This is maybe a general question. As you are coding, Paul, I was wondering. I was just wondering to myself that what is the? I've noticed that you're coding. You're subscribing to. You're doing your subscriptions inside a constructor, right? So I was wondering
Yeah.
what because normally I do my subscriptions inside an on-init lifecycle hook. So I was wondering what the performance maybe penalties, if there are any, will be if between the two maybe ways of the two dynamics of subscription. Is there maybe a different? Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is an opinionated question where like everybody kind of have their own view on it. Me personally, I don't actually know the performance issue, but what I prefer to do is to do the subscription inside the constructor because the constructor runs before the on-init, right? The constructor function runs before the on-init function, right? So I kind of prefer it there so that if it's an API call, the API call has already initiated before the on-init state reads. But there are some instances where if you run it inside the constructor, you might run into an issues depending on the task that you are doing, right? Sometimes it's just best if you run it inside the on-init, since some of the processes you might need the UI to be fully loaded up before that particular code can run. So I think it should be up to you which, sorry, sorry, depending on the task that you are doing, I think then you can decide which one to do. I don't know if anyone has a much better or more experienced one, but from my point of view, that's what I think it is. Depending on the task that you are doing, then you decide where to run it, either in the constructor or in on-init.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
All right.
Thank you.
So do you have more questions? Okay, I think Wayne has a question.
Oh, no, no, no. I just wanted to say thank you, Eric, for anyone else maybe have a question or comment? Oh, thank you all for the questions as well. And also thank you, Paul, for taking the time, you know, take us through this. Uh, Quite a new subject, very fresh. This came in 2016 when it was in developer preview. Now it's in 17. It's there, like full blown right now. If you wanna make use of it, it's really, really up to you to make use of such kind of features that usually are meant to ease the work that developers do when it comes to working with the activity of the application. So thank you. Thank you very much, Paul, for taking us through this.
All right, Wayne,
Right.
thank you too. I think Joy had her hand up. I don't know.
Okay. Hey, Joy.